Here, look. I'm going to zoom in. Watch this.
Yeah. So we're actually looking at our iPhone right now. We should be looking at that camera up on top.
Yeah.
Maybe this is... We didn't think this
work.
through. This is what it looks like, folks, when you make movies. They're kind of a little rough on the edges, but, you know, they always end up...
I did eraser
What is
pencil.
your favorite thing about Nikon cameras?
Ooh.
That's not on the list.
Ooh.
Just kidding.
Where's my CPS hat? Careful. Fighting words. But I do have a Nikon pen. Thank you, NPS.
There you go. I have Nikon friends. I just 37, 47.
We're building people up. That's nice.
Wow, we got everyone's watching.
I know. We got the world. All right,
There's a lot of people that are like having coffee or on the
We
break
must
right
be
now.
trending.
We must be doing something. I
Because
don't
you know
what it
us,
is yet.
trendy ProMediaGear.
Right. Right. So I grew up in. I was born in Arlington Heights, and I grew up in the Schaumburg area. My parents settled in there in like the late '60s, and I had been riding horses my whole life, and up until I was about 16 years old. And my parents, we traveled a lot. My mom worked for United Airlines, and we got to see a lot of amazing places. And one of the trips we took was my junior year in high school. We went to San Francisco and took a tour of Alcatraz. And when we finished taking the tour, there was this gigantic movie crew that had set up while we were inside the jail, the prison, excuse me. And I just saw this film crew in this 35 millimeter Panavision camera, and I was like, this bolt of lightning hit me, and I just knew like, that's really what I want to do. I got so excited and so just absolutely enamored with like what was this world all about. I just knew that I was going to do it, and I didn't know how, and I didn't even understand what it was at the time. But
That spark clicked.
It was a huge spark. It was a bolt of lightning, and it was from there. My father took me over to a place in it was Hoffman Estates. It was called Lion Photo, and we went into the camera store, and my dad told the salesperson that he said, my son's really excited about photography, and I'd like to buy him a camera. So we looked at a bunch of cameras, and I ended up with a Contax 139 was my first camera.
Nice.
With a Zeiss 50 millimeter 1.7, which
good lens, good
my
lens.
dad did not spare any expense at the time. This was like the late 70s. And I was like, oh my gosh, you know, look at this beautiful camera. It's all black, you know, black box. And he says to the guy, well, how's he supposed to learn how to use this? And the guy's name was Dave Toll, salesman. I still remember his name. When I was 16 years old, I got that camera. And he said, there's a table over in the back of the store. It's got a bunch of books and literature. And he said, one of them has a cassette tape, and it's real easy to follow along.
Nice.
So my dad bought me this beautiful camera and a book with a cassette tape.
So pre-YouTube.
Yeah, pre-YouTube, pre everything. And so I literally like flipped through the pages, and it was sort of a very rudimentary version of like what Rosetta Stone is today. So there are pictures of like, here's a wide angle lens, here's a telephoto lens, here's a fast shutter speed, here's a slow shutter speed. And this guy's talking on this cassette tape, my little realistic thing I got at Radio Shack, you know, push play, big honking cassette player, and I'm flipping through the pictures, and that's how I learned photography. So I've never been formally trained.
Great.
I just sort of learned through the visuals of what photography is, which is a beautiful way to learn photography, is actually looking at pictures and discovering like how was that picture made.
Sure, you can learn a lot about like composition, what is enticing to you. Art's very subjective, you're aware of that, but I mean it's very like, if you're good at compositing and you have a basic eye and good vision, you can use almost any medium to be creative.
Right, exactly.
And I mean I tell that all the time to a lot of people. You can use the most important camera you have is one you have
with you, right? Exactly. And
But-
most of the time it's an iPhone and you're on Instagram with it.
That's right, but you always want the best camera you can afford and the best lens you can afford.
There's always something
There's always
to
something,
buy.
and more gadgets and gear than you need because we get geeked out about it.
Sure.
But ultimately, if you have a good eye, you have a good eye.
Yeah.
I've seen some very talented people with very expensive cameras that don't produce the best photos in the world. It just
like, you know,
happens.
Yeah.
Just the best gear is not going to make the best photo.
Sure.
But that's great. So after you got into it, did you take any classes in the high school or anything? Did you have like a journalism or a sports photography class or anything like that you could?
Sports was actually the first place I started because I had my camera, and you know, when you first get a camera, you just start taking pictures of everything. Hey, look, there's a spider on the wall. Click. Look, there's my shoe on the floor. Click. You know, and you just like, you're excited just to create something. And
Sure.
at the time, I was shooting on film. I learned on Tri-X, and so I was buying rolls of film and taking them to a photography store. You'd drop it off, and it was like the photomat was around back in those days in the 70s.
It was like a couple days at the time.
People don't even know what you say. What's a photomat? They'd be like, "What you mean, like a laundromat?" No, a photomat. What is? What? They don't have a clue. And so, you know, remember they used to have the drive-through. You're probably too young to remember that too. But there was a
Walgreens
little
the drive-through.
It was almost like a drive-through little coffee hut,
Okay.
and you'd roll up and you drop off your 35 millimeter,
Fill out the
your
envelope.
110, fill out the envelope. You'd
Yep.
come back 3 days later and you'd be like, what did I get? Because you
Yeah,
didn't
you
have
have no
a clue.
idea, right?
So I would have those, my pictures, I drop them off, and I started getting pictures back, and then I wanted to learn how to print my own film. I wanted to learn how to develop it. So I bought a darkroom kit and got the chemicals in a little changing bag, and I used to shoot my own film, and then I used to develop my own film, and then I had a little Bessler enlarger that I set up in. So I took over my mother's bathroom, and she was always screaming because the chemicals would stink up the house.
The
and
fixative
I'd be
roots.
in there forever. She's like, "What are you doing? How long are you gonna be in there?" And I'm like, "Hold on, Mom. I'm trying." I got the red light on, the tongs, and the trays, and it was just like, oh my gosh. You think about what we went through to get an image back in the day. It was really something else. So
That's great that they supported you like that, though.
yeah, absolutely. So I started developing my own film, and I eventually started shooting basketball games and football games at high school.
Cool.
And I think I dated a girl for a short period of time. It was a cheerleader, so I'm taking cheerleader pictures. And I got this 50 millimeter lens. That's all I had, and I had to tell a story with that lens. I didn't even know what I was doing.
The school didn't provide you with extra equipment?
No,
or
they
anything
didn't
at the
have
time?
any of that stuff. So, but we did have a dark room at the
Good.
school, in the art department, which was kind of fun. And I eventually got. I told my dad. I said, I need to get a zoom lens because I can't get any closer with this lens. So I bought it was a Tamron. It was a 70 to 200, somewhere around that range. And so I bought that. I was like, oh my gosh, I got this big zoom lens that
From
I
the
can.
50, that's like a...
Right, it's like you get a 70 to 200 and suddenly like you feel like you have a telescope in your hand. So I was shooting a lot of sports with that, and then from there I ended up going to Harper College and became the key photographer for the Harbinger newspaper. And so I used to shoot, back when Harper College had a football team, I used to shoot the Harper Hawks games. And at the time, Tim Terrell was the quarterback who actually went on to play in the NFL for 7 years, and we're still good friends today, and I've done some work with him in the past. But that sort of launched me shooting sports, and then from the sports they sent me off on concert assignments. And so first assignments out of the gate, I shot like Muddy Waters and Buddy Rich, two of like just absolutely legends in the music industry. And one of those images I shot of Muddy Waters actually landed in the hands of somebody at the Illinois. It was like a photojournalism contest that they would submit stuff, and I won a state award for a picture I took of Muddy Waters, and so that really launched my career as far as sort of it guided me in like what was I good at, what was I passionate about, and it's always been musicians and athletes.
Good. So did that really like spearhead you? Like the one, like you got a good shot at golf, you're gonna golf forever. Like you can have a bad round of golf, and then you got that one good shot that somebody really appreciates or you really appreciated. Like that shot you took, and it just like keeps you focused. You're like, that's what I want to keep doing.
Yeah, and you forget about all the like, oh, that was out of focus, or the shutter speed was wrong, or the exposure was too light or too dark. I mean, shooting film, like you had to know what you were doing.
Sure.
Now all the digital stuff, people are really, I don't want to say spoiled, but they don't understand how easy they have it and how
instant checking, instant gratification on my aperture, my focus.
Gratification. So the craft of photography has really changed a lot over the years as far as people just take pictures. They don't understand why or how they're taking the pictures. They just see something and they want to capture it. And you're not really a photographer. It's almost like you're kind of a tourist at that point.
Well, it's like I shot 300 photos or burst mode, but the one's going to be composited perfectly. It's great.
Yeah.
But in film, I've only got 24 shots.
You had 30,
or whatever.
24 to 36, and it's like, should I take a picture of that? And you actually stopped to think about, was that a good shot? Or, so it caused you to be more mindful of what you were doing instead of like, oh, here's a picture of my sandwich today, click. I mean, it's ridiculous the things we take pictures of today. But at the same time, people are enjoying photography, and that's really what it's about. If they are enjoying themselves, they're going to do more of it, and hopefully they'll get to a point where they want to buy a real camera, and they want to either become a hobbyist or an enthusiast, or maybe even get inspired to be a professional. Do what you're passionate about, and you'll find what you're good at, and you'll find that what you're passionate about usually becomes what you're good at, because the more you do it, the better you become at it.
What was your next adventure?
Sure. So what happened was I was taking pictures at Harper College and shooting for the newspaper, and one day, one of the guys that was on the staff said, "Oh, you're interested in cinematography? You should check out Columbia College." Now this is pre-internet, pre-everything, right? You had to go to the library or look in the yellow pages,
Rolodex thing?
right, to find how do I learn where to go to study film. And so I found out about Columbia College from him, And then I went down to 600 South Michigan Avenue, where Columbia College still is. Remember, like, taking the train downtown and skateboarding down Michigan Avenue and, navigating and swerving in between people that are in the LaSalle Business District. Nice. And I took a tour of Columbia College, got a hold of some kind of curriculum or whatever it was that sort of showed what the classes were that were offered, and ended up going there I started there in 1982.
Cool.
So I took film classes there, learned film, studied cinematography, studied lighting. From there, I ended up getting my first job at a rental house, which was on LaSalle Street, called Victor Duncan. And that was, I was a camera prep tech, and so I would put cameras together when commercial production companies and feature films would come in to order gear to shoot movies. John Hughes was always busy and doing stuff like that. So I was a prep tech for about 2 years, and then from there I started to freelance and work on commercials and little independent projects, which eventually led me into 1987, which is when I got into the union and started working on big feature films. And that was always kind of my dream. From that moment I spotted that camera at Alcatraz to that first moment when I was standing on a set. Which
finally clicked, right?
Lucas was the first movie set I was ever on.
That's
and
awesome.
I remember just like being so excited out of my mind, but terrified at the same time, because this was like a whole nother world to me. Like, I didn't know anything about it. I knew how the cameras went together because that was my job.
But you're green
assembling
on the
them,
set.
but I knew nothing about how the set worked.
Mm-hmm.
And so I ended up loading film that night and working. I worked all day at my regular job, and then my friend Peter Kuttner, who was the camera assistant on that movie, he picked me up and we drove up to Lincolnshire and worked all night long. So I literally went for like something like 36 hours straight. But when you're like 20 years old, you're like
so jacked.
Oh my God! I was like out of my mind excited.
That's a good break. I mean, that's fantastic.
Oh, it was terrific. I'll never forget that.
Like, what was something that you learned on set right away that you were like, this is kind of different, or something you didn't expect? Anything?
I was blown away by the number of people that were standing around and all the trucks. I think that was the first impression I had, pulling in the parking lot going, oh my gosh, look at all these trucks. I mean, it was literally like the circus was in town. Yeah. And I'd never seen anything like that
before.
For
the PAs and all that stuff.
Yeah, everyone was on radios and walking around and like all this activity and like, where do I stand? I was like so nervous I was going to be in somebody's way, and it just felt like I was in everybody's way. And really what it was is just I didn't understand how a set worked, and that
you were where you were supposed
everybody's
to be.
got to be someplace, and it's like it's okay to just stand there, but ask somebody like, where's a good place to stand? I didn't even have that wherewithal, that capability of understanding, like to ask, because I was just like,
Deer in
what do I do?
headlights.
Yeah,
so excited, probably.
Yeah, it was like that kid on the playground that's or that little dog at the dog park that's just like running around and running around and running around. Like,
What's this?
And then they just they fall over.
I know you've traveled a ton, extensively for your
bit.
job. A little bit's an understatement, but like you've been, it seems like I'll call you. I'm like, oh man, sorry, I'm in Hollywood this week. Next week I'm in Nashville, but I'll see you on Tuesday for coffee. It's like, so what was like one or two quick little like best opportunities or favorite memories that you've been on, even recently, or it could be in the past?
Sure. Well, my first screen credit was obviously the most memorable moment for me, which I worked on Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. And so to have been working on that movie and then to get to watch the movie in a theater and you see your name come up on the screen, it's an amazing experience. It's like you felt like you win the lottery.
Yeah, it's
like,
amazing.
oh my
It's a
God,
classic.
there's my name, and I've been watching movies up until that point and just going, oh my gosh, someday it would be so cool to see my name on the screen. And then you do, and you feel like you feel like you're on top of the world. It was just the most amazing experience, and that was just really a lot of fun. I mean, John Candy was a lot of fun. Steve Martin, those guys were just great. John Hughes was just wonderful. He had a real. I always tell people, like, if you didn't work with John Hughes, you don't know what you're missing, because it was really like this family environment that he created, and all the same people were there, and he had a good time. He let people do their jobs, and I didn't feel like watching John Hughes direct was like, he was just having a conversation. Okay. And there's a scene in Planes, Trains, and Automobiles when John Candy is selling the shower curtain rings downtown at the bus depot on Randolph, and he just said, he walked up to John and he goes, you got to sell these. That's all he said to him. He goes, you got to sell these shower curtain rings. He goes, well, we're going to send people to you. They take extras and they just throw them at John.
Nice.
And he'd walk in.
And
if you watch that movie, that was completely unscripted. Everything in that scene is unscripted. We turned on the camera, and at the time, we had 1,000-foot loads of 35mm film. So when you turn the camera on,
10 minutes?
11 minutes and 11 seconds, you were out of film. And so we just turned on the camera, and John just went for 11 minutes straight and just ad-libbed everything in there. And it was a blast to watch that sort of organic process where, you know, it wasn't like the script supervisor's falling like, oh, you kind of missed that line when, when you cut and go to the next roll. So we just did that scene. There was 2 takes in that movie.
Nice.
Of like, it's actually 22 minutes of film of
Just
John Candy just
it out.
improving and selling shower curtain rings to, whatever we put in it.
That's awesome.
And so that was really fun to kind of watch all that stuff unfold.
It's great. That movie's like an instant classic too. I mean, it comes on A&E and TNT.
Every
and
Thanksgiving, I get an opportunity to sort of relive that memory. And it's funny too, because I tell people a lot, because if I'm watching the movie with somebody, at the end when John Candy's, he sees Steve Martin with his wife, and he sees that love and the family and all that stuff, and you see him kind of put his head down, and he gets emotional. I get choked up every time I watch that scene, because I feel like my life is like that, because I'm never
Always
in
traveling.
one place, and I'm always traveling. I have family and loved ones and these amazing relationships that I've built, through my lifetime, but I'm always sort of by myself wherever I go. Mm-hmm. And so I feel that sort of disconnect with what is considered normal, that someone's got a 9-to-5 job and they've got a family to come home to every night, and I'm like, people say, well, where are you going next? I'm like, I don't know. Let's find out. I'll go to Facebook and see where I landed for the day.
Yeah, right.
And it's very exciting, but at the same time, there's this sort of strange, reality that I live in, that I'm never really anywhere. I'm everywhere. And people ask me, well, where do you live? I'm like, planet Earth. That's kind of my answer.
Nice.
It's really the reality of it. As artists, I think we need change. We need to have new vistas and new horizons and new things to look at, because we need to be inspired. If you stay in the same spot all the time, you eventually get bored. I mean, that's just human nature, to be bored. It's like, let's go someplace we haven't gone before. And just think about dinner, right? Where do you want to go to dinner? Oh, let's go to whatever. Oh, we already ate there. Let's go find someplace new. Like, sure. we are creatures of habit, but at the same time, we are creatures of interest, and we need to find things that are like different. We sort of need that.
There's 2 ways to look at it. I mean, you can say you stayed in one place and you're great, and you had great family and friends, but you stayed in your circle. Or in your case, you get to go all over. And sometimes it's hectic, and sometimes it's, I'm sure, boring, or a little bit, you feel a little bit introverted of, I'm just kind of by myself. But at the end of the day, you're like, thanks for Facebook Time Hop. You get, man, do you remember that was a great memory when I was in California and I saw this, or I was in Arizona and I saw this, and you just get to see so many opportunities that way. So it's a double-edged sword. The grass isn't always greener, but at the same time, you want to see what you see.
Right.
So
and it's funny, here we are on Facebook Live, and it's, even though I'm by myself, I feel like I get to bring all my friends along with me when I do these posts and when I share images. It's like, because people are, they don't get to experience what I get to experience. So a lot of it, I feel like I'm giving something really special to people that they wouldn't get a chance to get out and see. And I have friends that comment on that all the time, like, oh, thank you so much for sharing that. It was really great to see, I've never seen the Grand Canyon. I've never seen the Nashville Walking Bridge. I've never, whatever it is, wherever I happen to be experiencing. And Hawaii was, certainly a giant
That was great.
experience.
The Pearl Harbor event.
The Pearl Harbor project was, I still don't know how I did that 18 hours a day for 8 days straight. It was complete
passion.
Adrenaline and passion, yeah.
Well, I mean, that's great. That's the good thing with the opportunity of Facebook and Instagram and different outlets nowadays, is we get this opportunity to share. And some people say, oh, it's a voyeuristic medium, but at the same time, it does allow you to share where you are, share with your friends, allow them to see things that possibly they couldn't see, wouldn't see, don't have an opportunity like we do sometimes. I mean, I travel a lot for work. I've traveled with different productions that I've done in the past, and like very blessed to be in different opportunities. And
absolutely.
Just got to absorb it while you can, and we only live here once, so take advantage of as much of it as you can.
Amen to that.
And you're definitely somebody that doesn't sleep hardly ever. I do like to sleep, but we both burn that candle at both ends, because enjoy it while you can. How did you first find out about ProMediaGear? What kind of interest level did made you reach out to me and stuff like that?
Right. Well, you and I met, and Tom, I believe we were having a little lunch break at
Visual Nation?
Yeah, it was a conference that was going on in Oak Brook, and I remember going through the little sort of trade show where the vendors were at, and I saw the equipment, and then I was grabbing a bite to eat, and I met you guys, and I remember telling you a story about another camera manufacturer who shall go unnamed, to be professional about it, but I had experienced a tremendous disappointment with this company. The customer service was really bad. I had a piece of equipment that broke. I was about to photograph a McLaren. It's not like they're sitting around like in the Walmart parking lot, you know, like, oh, there's another McLaren. Which color do you want to shoot? Let's shoot the red one and not the blue one. So I'm going to photograph this McLaren, and I went to hit the quick release clamp, and the whole thing literally exploded on the ground.
Okay.
And it pretty much ruined the shot that I needed to get. So I had a horrible customer service experience. I remember talking to you guys about it, and I remember you graciously extended your card and said, hey, do you know about ProMediaGear? And I'm like, I don't. I think I've seen an ad in Digital Photo Pro magazine maybe. And you said, oh, we'd love to share some of our equipment with you. And then I remember you gave me the, I think you gave me the tripod at first and the ball head.
Yeah, you were looking at, man, I don't know. Yeah, you just borrowed some stuff that day. You shot with it. I remember you helped, like, was it Lindsay Adler that day
I was
or
helping
something?
Lindsay Adler.
You were like, wait, something broke. I need to borrow this. Thanks, Tony. And just went and helped her, and then just kind of like fell in love with the quality of the gear.
Yeah.
Made locally, made in the United States. We actually machine it. 99% of our products in Tinley Park, Illinois. Have a small assembly shop here. Well, I guess large assembly shop in Orland Park, Illinois, and. Yeah, you were just like real gracious, wanting to show some images you've done,
right.
talk about cinematography you did.
Right.
We had some similar like movie type interests and stuff, so I remember we just hammed it up for a minute, and then the conferences like that are great because you're learning, but you're also getting to meet vendors. Us being a smaller company, as well as there was like Koi Labs and a couple other companies all around. Everybody's just really in this family where everybody's here in the photo industry to help everybody, especially at the trade shows.
Yeah. Well, the thing that impressed me the most about you guys is that you cared about taking care of me, and that's really what it's all about. Like my whole career in movies and both in photography, I follow the people that take care of me. It doesn't matter whose name is over the door, because that's going to change. People move around, they shift companies and things like that. So I've always built relationships with people, and if you called me up tomorrow and said, hey, I've decided to move on to some different horizons and I'm going to be over here now, I would go follow you wherever you went, because you and I have established a relationship, and that's really the important thing in our industry is that it's people supporting people, and it's not a piece of equipment. Equipment's going to break and fail on you. It just happens. It's part of the game, and there's always going to be new gear that comes out. But it's the interaction and the support that you get from those companies that really makes a difference, and the images that you're able to capture. And I remember Tom looked at my website and he goes, you want to be a brand ambassador? I think he almost immediately offered me a brand ambassador, like right on the spot. I'm like, what does that even mean? I don't know. And no one's ever extended that to me before. And I remember you giving me some some gear to check out, and I just fell in love with it. I mean, it's absolutely the best gear I've ever had. And everywhere I travel, someone will inevitably walk up and go, what is that? And I've handed out cards. I've given your name out.
We've had many of your friends reach out, call me, and like,
they always do, because they trust me, because they know like I'm going to hunt down the best gear, and I don't care how much it costs.
Sure.
I just want to have the best gear, because when I have the best gear, I have that sense of confidence, and that gives me the best pictures. If I'm worried about my gear, now I've broken my concentration on my craft, and that's the most important thing. If I know I have my gear supporting me, sky's the limit. I can do whatever my crazy imagination comes up with.
Sure. Well, I appreciate you with the compliments to me as well as the company. And I know we do make some great gear, and that's what we do, is we try to build relationships. Being a smaller brand and me being me, I just like to meet people, common interest, talk to people, get to know them, because ultimately the customer service of like everybody can shoot with every kind of equipment nowadays. It's just like, what are you doing? Like, that's pretty rad. Like, like-minded people like stick together. You need something. We've helped you out overnight and stuff. I've dropped stuff off at your house.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Like,
I remember being in Hawaii and calling you, and like I needed something, and you're like, no problem, I'll get it to you. And
sure.
That's really what it's all about. And a lot of people don't understand that. They think it's all about making a sale and like who's next in line.
Sure.
And between my relationship with you guys and with ProCam, I mean, I'm set. I don't feel like I need anything else outside of that. And I've built really great relationships with both Westcott and ProPhoto. And I've had conversation with guys at Think Tank. So those are kind of my big brands that I use that support me in my needs, on a daily and weekly basis. I mean, I'm always doing something different, but the sports is really kind of my big thing that I do.
Sure. So what kind of sports, maybe people don't know, like where you're using our gimbal head a lot lately, the Katana Junior, which is our lightweight 2.4 pound aluminum gimbal. It's awesome. It's got a panning sealed ball bearing as well as a tilt sealed ball bearing. I have one downstairs. Unfortunately, I didn't bring it up here to the interview, but we're looking for one. We were making them, as you saw on Facebook Live earlier. We're building them as we speak, but it's a great gimbal, and it's used a lot for wildlife photography. It pairs well with our tripods, our 34 series carbon fiber, 42 series carbon fiber tripod, as well as you're using it instead of shooting wildlife. You shoot a lot of polo events for the Barrington Polo Club and other polo events in the area, in the Chicagoland area. How does that fit in your workflow? What do you like about it?
Sure. Well, I was a little apprehensive to try the gimbal head, to be honest with you, because I've been hand-holding most of the stuff that I shoot. I shoot polo in Barrington and Oak Brook, in California, in Empire Polo Ground in Indio. I shoot the Long Beach Grand Prix. I shoot surfing. And so it's all about fluidity and being able to move around quickly, but also having the stability. Shooting my action sports, I've developed the technique with motion blur that is probably the most difficult thing that I've ever had to work on, and I still do. It's not perfected by any stretch of the imagination. It never will, because it's a constantly changing elements.
And the motion.
Yeah, and so I've used fluid heads just from shooting movies my whole life, and so I was working with fluid heads before that, but I found that it was the way that I would hold the camera when I would move the fluid head. It was a little bit challenging. I wasn't quite getting the results, and there's a lot of drag on a fluid head even when you have it loose. So I started to try out the katana head, and I found that it to be really, really useful, because the difference between the fluid head and the gimbal head is the nodal point.
Balancing point, yeah.
It puts you in zero gravity, and that's exactly what you want, because when the camera's to be perfectly balanced, and when you're on a nodal point,
sure,
vertically, then that camera is going to maintain its axis without getting real technical. But I presume technical people are watching this.
We could hope, but if not, I mean, like, think about it. If you're on a ball head and your lens is on here, the weight of it's going to just pull it down.
Yeah.
The weight of that camera is way
back. It's a
here.
teeter-totter action as opposed to a rotation that's set
from the center point.
Right.
So when you find the balancing point on it, what you're going to do is mainly it's on the lens, on the longer lenses, and we'll supply you with a 6-inch, 7-inch, 8-inch lens plate, balancing plate. And you're able then to push and pull that lens on an Arca Swiss cradle to kind of find that sweet spot. And you want to find that balancing point. That way, too, while you're shooting, if you let go, it's going to fall down into that balancing point.
Right.
Whereas on a ball head, people are like, well, I don't need one. Look what I can do. This is fine. Why would I even need a gimbal?
Yeah.
But ultimately, if you're in a gimbal situation, or a ball head, excuse me, and you're wiggling, and then you let go, that camera's going to rock.
Exactly.
And there's a chance that thing's going to rock.
You have to lock the pan, you have to lock the tilt.
There's a lot of things
head,
to remember.
You just let go and walk away.
Exactly. It's going to balance on your tripod straight, put that center of gravity down straight. You're not going to get that opportunity where you have to think more. You can think about your craft,
yeah,
like you said earlier, and just think about the composition of that shot. And then that way, when you let go of the camera, or even you want to just release it a little bit, you don't have to worry about my whole thing tipping over. God forbid I just dropped 6, 8, 10, 12 grand of equipment.
Yeah.
That's a nightmare, and almost everybody's done it at least once accidentally, but you learn real fast.
And then you guys had developed that great ball head leveler, which is terrific, because when I'm shooting polo, I'm always moving around, and I'm not always on level ground. So it's really great to plop down, loosen that knob up, and just get that bubble right where you want it, and then crank it back down. And then the other thing that I do too, because sometimes I shoot vertical, is it allows me to flip the camera really quickly, horizontal or vertical, on the gimbal head, and get whatever kind of shot I need, or even tilt it. Sometimes I
can get some angles, creative
sometimes
juices
I'll
going.
cant the angle, and I'll tilt it a little bit just for just an interesting dynamic,
creative composition.
It's kind of a big part of my style of shooting. It's like nothing's ever level, especially if you look at my Instagram account. Rarely is anything level, because I just find it boring.
It's more interesting.
Yeah.
That's good. Well, I mean, that's about all we have for you today. Thanks for sticking and watching an episode of The Couch with us here at ProMediaGear. We're here at PC.
Thanks,
Appreciate all your loyalty, and
Yeah.
love talking to you, man, catching up. Why don't you go ahead and plug your website and let everybody know out there what's going on?
Yeah, you can. So my website is paolocascio.com, PaoloCascio.com, and you can also Google me. I'm pretty easy to find on the internet. You can see some of the different movie projects and stuff that I've been on, but everything is pretty much on the
You've
website.
got an extensive bio on your site. You've got a little of the sports, a little of the cinema, a little of this, a little of that.
Yeah.
Get to see where you've been, where you're going. I'm sure a lot of people enjoy keeping up with you, so we're going to keep sharing the love and enjoy being with you today. And we'll look forward to coming back. Maybe we can do a video next time of showing your tips and techniques of how to use
Yeah,
something.
I'd love to invite you guys out to an event sometime and just kind of see so people can actually see how this equipment is used in a
real
environment. Yeah.
Love that. Well, stay tuned for more episodes of The Couch here in the future. We appreciate your time today. And for more information, visit ProMediaGear.com or check out a local dealer near you. Thanks, guys.
See you guys.